This is a Trump rally. If you don't like it, don't come here to protest. Don't come if you're uneducated and you don't know what you're talking about.
You would rather they just didn't come here?
I would rather them not come here.
Are you a fan of the First Amendment?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, the right to bear arms. Look, this is...
That's not the First Amendment.
No. The Fourth Amendment. But I'm saying...
That's not the Fourth Amendment either.
Which one is it?
So why are we out here today?
We're out here to give support to a president that shows that he is working for the United States of America in a very, very brave way.
How would you imagine that Trump as president would have stopped Putin from going into Ukraine?
Absolutely, because Trump doesn't put up with anything, and he would have, he would have threatened them, and this wouldn't have happened. He would not put up with anything. He would let them know face to face what he thinks, and he would let them know, like, hey, basically, if you do this to us, we're going to do this back to you. Don't even try.
Don't you want the most qualified person, even though it might be a so-called, swamp member, lobbyist, or whatnot? Is that not the best thing to do?
Is there anything specific that he did to make your life better?
A lot of stuff. I mean, he was, I would say, for the economy, housing, all that stuff, a lot affordable. You could go in the grocery store and buy food and, walk out with a car full. Now you get a little half a bag full of food.
I want to name names. Very important to name names. So we know on the Republican side who voted against Bernie's effort, every single one of them. But let's look at the Democrats. So Democrats who voted against blocking the sale of bulldozers. You have Senators Richard Blumenthal, Chris Coons, Catherine Cortez Masto, Jackie Rosen, Kirsten Gillibrand, Chuck Schumer, John Fetterman. Get them out. Get them out. Don't forget their names. And I don't want to hear a damn Democratic voter come to me, whether it's, 4 years from now, 6 years from now, whenever, to tell me, no, that's not true. These Democrats never voted in favor of sending weapons to Israel. Please, let's go to the next one. If you're curious, why they voted against it. Money spent by pro-Israel lobby groups and donors. So you got Richard Blumenthal, he's taken over or nearly $1.7 million from the Israel lobby. Chris Coons, over $1.7 million. Christine Cortez Masto, wow, she really did rake it in. 3.2 million, I'm rounding obviously. Jackie Rosen, 7.6 million. Man, that's a lot of money. Chuck Schumer, 6.4 million. And then you have John Fetterman, who's already taken nearly $2 million from the Israel lobby in the short period of time he's been a politician. It's just wild, absolutely wild.
We are dealing with the most corrupt, callous, and incompetent presidential administration in the history of the United States. Period. And so on this of the list of what is empirical evidence of that point, let's talk about this war. He entered a war, got pulled into it by Bibi Netanyahu, let's be clear about that, entered a war that the American people do not want, putting at risk American service members. And among the many consequences of it, it includes jacking up the cost of gas so that on average Americans are paying at least $15 more to fill up their tank. Diesel costs 50% more, so that's what fuels a semi, a truck that otherwise delivers our food and our household items. And where do we think that cost is going to land? It's on the consumer.
This video right here is exactly the type of language and energy every single Democrat should be bringing to the table. Watch this.
How much do you guys know about Jared Kushner? Ivanka's husband. He's on the Saudi payroll for $2 billion. Did you know that? And now he's leading American diplomacy in the Middle East, apparently while at the very same time asking princes and sheikhs across the Arab world to give him billions more. If you're watching this online, don't take my word for it. Look it up for yourself. Can you imagine like a normal sitting U.S. ambassador just hitting up Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman for billions of dollars? But he's a Trump, a royal, a princeling. The rules are for us, not for them. And it's not just Jared getting in on the action. A company owned in part by Eric and Don Jr. has been pitching Gulf kingdoms on its drone interceptors during this war. The Financial Times reported, quote, Pete Hegseth's broker looked to buy defense fund before Iran attack. I tell you what, never before have we seen so little effort to hide so much corruption. The Mar-a-Lago Mafia has taken American corruption to spectacular new heights.
That's Democratic Senator from Georgia, Jon Ossoff, who is sounding more and more presidential by the day. Interesting thing to think about. And by the way, he is spot on here, and Democrats should be taking notes because it's not just the Trump regime that's corrupt in plain sight. It is the entire Trump crime family, the Mar-a-Lago Mafia, as he calls it. I'm going to start using that one from now on.
But we can't talk about taxes without being honest about how broken the system is. And that's not just the system that processes American taxes, but also the tax system itself, which is deeply unfair, deeply unequal, and deeply causing greater economic inequality in our country. With regards to the tax system itself, we can't ignore that over the last year during the current administration, and especially through the efforts of DOGE, which gutted the IRS and many of its affiliated organizations, that we have seen a system that has been further broken and dismantled. Key IRS functions were dismantled, staff were pushed out, and inexperienced political actors were put in charge of critical activities that are essential to the United States' functioning and fiscal security. Engineering work was paused, modernization efforts, which had been years in the planning, were canceled, and Americans were left with an agency that was barely able to process basic questions and service. And most disturbingly, which I hear about often in my district, is that we have seen reports of reckless data access that was granted to tech bros and to young people who probably shouldn't have access to those systems, raising serious concerns about Americans' most sensitive personal data, how it was mishandled, whether it was downloaded, and whether or not it was given over to tech bros and cyber companies that are using it for their own purposes. At the same time, the tax code itself is fundamentally broken. I don't think I have to tell anyone in this room, but a nurse or a teacher should not be paying higher taxes than a billionaire. Can we agree on something as fundamental as that? But as we are sitting here this week, my colleagues across the aisle are advancing a resolution this week to rebrand and to celebrate the one big beautiful bill, the big ugly bill, as I've been calling it, which further created inequality in the tax system. It gave wealthy households over $13,000 a year in additional tax breaks while cutting food assistance, medical coverage, educational assistance, and increasing taxes on the lowest income tax bracket in the United States. And I have personally asked my friends and family and others in my orbit whether any of them can point to a single decrease in their taxes, and I have yet to find anyone that can. In fact, the only tax reductions that anyone I know has had was because of state tax reductions in New Mexico, where we have made the decision to not fund forever wars, to not give away tax breaks to billionaires, but to use our taxes to invest in education, in healthcare, in food assistance, and the welfare and well-being of our people. And that is what the American people want. They want a fair tax code, a fair shake, and they want to see their taxpayer dollars being put to some good, not being wasted on forever wars as we're seeing currently. Now, every year, my office receives hundreds of calls from constituents who are seeking to have assistance regarding the federal government, and IRS happens to be one of the top 3 calls that we get. We've gotten calls from a constituent who couldn't reach a single IRS representative to find out if they actually owed the thousands of dollars that they received a bill on. Another constituent who just needed a simple transcript to apply for housing assistance, and they couldn't even get a call back. We have small business owners who have filed amended returns who heard nothing over a year, no updates, no guidance, no way to check what was going on, that put their businesses in peril. And we have seniors coming to us constantly asking for help to understand confusing notices and things that they've received through the mail. So something is fundamentally wrong with the system. And I can tell you, in New Mexico, there is literally one case advocate holding it down for the entire New Mexico delegation. One. And I just want to shout her out right now as one of our federal workers. Her name is Janelle Rivera. And I know people love to attack the IRS, but let me just say this. It's our federal workers that are holding it down right now. And I absolutely want to say thank you to Ms. Rivera and to all of our federal workers who are doing their jobs, showing up in spite of this chaos and taking care of our communities. So as we move forward in this hearing, I want to make sure that we talk about real things we can do to modernize the IRS, to set clear timelines, to have measurable goals, to have accountability, and to make sure that our communities are taken care of. We need mobile-friendly tools so people can check on their refunds and upload documents and do it on their own and not have to spend hundreds and thousands of dollars paying others to do it. We need to fully staff these agencies so that they can answer the phones and answer simple questions and not do it on the backs of a few federal workers. And we need to bring back the direct file that we put in place in the last administration that made it possible for millions of Americans, especially low-income Americans, to file their taxes for free. What a concept. I mean, why did they dismantle that? And finally, we need to protect Americans' data, because what happened under DOGE and the stealing of American data and violations of data privacy is wrong and illegal. So there is a lot of work to be done to build a fair tax system, a system that is fair, functional, and focused on them, and that doesn't give handouts to the wealthy on the backs of the American people. And we deserve a federal government that actually serves the people, that answers its phones, processes paperwork, and treats our taxpayers with respect.
We as a Black caucus and as Haitians in America, we've got to fight and fight for Haiti. Help the people understand that we are fighting to extend TPS. We will never stop fighting to extend TPS.
That's Frederica Wilson of Bohemian descent. She's a Florida congresswoman, 83 years old, and she's advocating for the extension of TPS status for the Haitians. So is there any Black Americans in office in Florida? Because all the melanated people I see coming out of there is of immigrant descent. But anyway, they just passed this through the House, H.R. 1689, that would require the Secretary of Homeland Security to designate Haiti for temporary protected status. Now, she's urging the Senate. Yeah, she said the House has acted with urgency and moral clarity. And now the Senate stands at a crossroads where they can choose courage or choose to turn away from the truth, Wilson said. I am demanding action. Pass H.R. 1689, extend TPS, protect these families and save lives. I will not stop fighting until this injustice is ended. Now, she represents the largest Haitian community. And my question is, how come they're not advocating for Haitians to stay in the Bahamas? Because, yeah, it's a total different tune out there with the Haitians. But anyway, the UN just released, in other news, the UN just released $140 million in humanitarian aid to Haiti. I hope it goes to the Haitians, because they've been known the leaders or whoever control the cash flow over there been known to take their portion. But anyway, yeah.
How much more of this crap are we going to tolerate? Well, happy Saturday, my friends. As I am recording this, it is Saturday, April 18th, 9:30 Eastern Time. Here's where we are with Donald Trump's illegal war. You know, yesterday, the markets shot up. Everybody was happy because Donald Trump said that the war was just about over, and Iran announced that they were going to reopen the Strait of Hormuz because Israel had agreed to a ceasefire with Lebanon. And so Iran was going to reopen the straits. Donald Trump said the war is going to be over in a matter of days. We're going to have this a final negotiation to end this war over the weekend, and everything's going to be great. So the markets were all giddy. And now it's Saturday, less than 24 hours after all of that bullshit, and all of that has evaporated. The Strait of Hormuz is once again closed. Why? Because Donald Trump did not lift the American blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. Because remember, we had this double blockade going. Donald Trump's brilliant plan for reopening the Strait of Hormuz was to blockade Iran's blockade. So the problem wasn't bad enough when Iran was, had their blockade going. They were letting some ships through. They were charging a toll, but things were coming through. Then Trump said, screw that. We're going to do a blockade so nothing gets through. The strategy there apparently was to squeeze Iran in the hopes that because Iran was allowing some of their vessels through and vessels, that benefited them coming to and from Iranian ports or were paying, a toll to pass the Strait of Hormuz, Trump figured, well, if we put the squeeze on Iran, not letting anything go through, then we can outlast them and Iran will cave. Apparently, having learned nothing since the start of this war, Iran is fully prepared to outlast us, and they know they can outlast us because the least little bit of pain and Donald Trump pulls a taco. How many times has he bluffed? How many times has he tacoed? So it's the idea that Trump can outlast Iran is ludicrous on its face. Anyway, Trump, although he announced that the war's end was imminent, just a matter of days, and that everything's great, he never lifted the American blockade. So Iran said, screw this. We're putting our blockade back in place. So I guess now we have the double blockade again. And not only that, Iran immediately started calling out Trump's lies, which is, of course, what they were. All day yesterday, he was putting out all these comments. The war's almost over. Iran has agreed to all our terms. Iran.
So guys, what do you think has happened in America in the last 24 hours? Is it a big thing or small thing? That's what we will be discussing about in today's video. And I hope that you really listened to the clips that we just played, because those are the items that we are going to react on. So a lot of things are happening in America right now. And of course, we are seeing chaos each and every day on every side, So Democrats, at this point, they are divided. And of course, Trump is doubling down, and even in his own allies, in his own base, there is a lot of challenges. And if you look at the weapons that are being sent to Israel, the dollars being sent to Israel, and then Haiti immigration battles, and also a lot of speeches that are calling out what some are now calling the Mar-a-Lago Mafia. So we are all going to discuss all these items, and I think it's good if we start with Democrats splitting over the weapons that are being sent to Israel, the money that is being supported on the Israel side. And I can tell you that this is one of the most controversial story right now at the moment as we speak, because within the Democratic Party there is a growing divide and a very huge one, because some Democrats are actually still supporting and they're still voting that weapons and money should be sent to Israel. Remember, some people are against it, and for them, they feel like, these things, it's just like they're supporting the conflicts around the world. So, if this particular item is stopped, if support is stopped, I mean, there will be no conflicts around the world. So, other people, they are trying to block military aid completely. I don't know if they are going to achieve that, but we shall see in the coming weeks. So we have seen Senator John Ossoff, who has a very mixed reaction, and he actually supported some aid while opposing others. So on this particular guy, it's not like he really stands on one side. No, he tries to see like, what does this mean for his people, and what does that mean for the people, and that is why you'll always see him not like trying to support everything that is put on the table. So if you look at party wise, or where he was elected, the party that he used for him to be elected, you will actually say that the party is not united anymore, because we expect that if you were voted under Democrat or Democratic Party, then if Democratic Party says this, you must support that. If you were voted under Republican Party, if the Republican Party says that we will not be supporting this, then you have to go with that. We call it party loyalty. So again, if you see a lot of young voters and the progressives ones, you will notice that they are increasingly on the side of anti-war and a lot of things pro-Palestine, those things. So Democrats are, most of them, you can clearly see that they are still under pro-Israel security policy. So this internal conflicts is becoming a major political pressure, and of course this is going to affect America's political future in the future, of course. So Senator also talks about Mar-a-Lago Mafia bombshell, and of course this is something that a lot of people really want to understand about this story, because most of them don't really know what's happening. And there was a rally at some location in America, and he went off on Trump and he called his cycled out, and I talked about the Mar-a-Lago Mafia. He accused them that there is a lot of corruption that is happening within the cycle, and also he talked about the family, Trump's family members profiting from power, and of course he talked about there is a lot of misleading information and misleading Americans about the war and the economy. So those were some of the items that he talked about. So if you check out the reports in the internet, they not really like, if you actually see the reactions, the crowd's reaction, you can clearly see that the Trump's leadership is coming out as dangerous and deceptive, according to what these people reacted. So okay, people outside there, they're like, no, this is not normal. It's not normal at all. Something needs to be done. And then we see Kamala Harris again, the opposition leader, coming out and calling out the current administration and telling them, hey, you are incompetent and you are the most corrupt administration. So for her, she's no longer holding back. Of late, we've been seeing her in talking, becoming vocal about these issues. When gas went up beyond, affordability, she talked. I mean, she talks so much nowadays. And of course, message is very clear. He's telling Americans that, the president is incompetent, is corrupt, and is unfit to lead. And of course, at this point, I can tell you that if elections were to be held today in the United States of America, I can honestly tell you that the president will not come back to office. So, of course, this signals something very important, and that a lot of Democrats are shifting from policy criticism to character attacks at this point and moment. And that most of the time, when it happens like that, it means that election mode has been turned on already. So MAGA supporters, on the other hand, we are seeing them in the streets supporting Trump, saying that, despite all the criticism, Trump's base, the MAGA, is not moving. We are not shaken. And, in the streets, they are really supporting him. But I'm not seeing young people. I'm only seeing old people, the senior citizens. So they are really defending Trump's decisions, and they believe that he's being targeted unfairly. And you could hear them saying that, the only one telling the truth is the president. So in this regard, we are basically talking about the loyalty that MAGA voters have on their leader. They're like, no matter what, no matter the controversy, we remain solid and emotional, and we are going to support him. And let's now talk about the taxes that this particular senator talked about. The rep talked about that you can never ever talk about taxes without talking about the broken system that needs to be fixed first, because the system is broken. So this particular lady are pushing a very deep argument that, you know what, guys, the tax system in America that is being used to file taxes, it's broken. And it's not just about taxes, it's about who the system benefits. And there is huge gap. There is a wealth inequality, and it's at, this particular one is being discussed so much. And I can tell you that this is where economic frustrations meet political anger. And this whole thing resonates heavily with each and every citizens of America. I mean, it doesn't matter if you are young, old. It doesn't matter if you are MAGA, not MAGA, Democrat, Republican, no. So there is this issue of 80 TPS issue that has been brought, that was recently voted in Congress. And I can tell it's a very big story that is still being discussed. And you know what happened? The America's House just passed a bill to protect around 350,000 Asians from deportation for 3 years. Like, they are going to stay for 3 years without anybody touching on them. So this issue was supported by Democrats and even some Republicans. But the twist is that the Senate might block it. And, previously Trump tried to end this protection. By the way, he tried to end it, but anyway, I don't know what's wrong with the current president. He really doesn't want immigrants in his country. So this Asians issue, it has triggered a very major debate on humanitarian responsibility, immigration control, politics, real human lives. We are talking about real human, by the way. And if you actually talk about Iran now, this blockade is continuing. The president is doubling down on his aggressive policy. Oh my God. And his administration has actually taken a very hard military approach, and it has also strengthened allies with Israeli. It has escalated conflicts, including the Iran tensions. So when the president talks about the blockade continues, it actually fits into a pattern that, we are still strong. The force is still at a base whereby there is a lot of strategy. America first is what we're talking about, and so many other things. So this particular moment in America, politics is not normal, honestly. The Democrats are fighting each other. Trump is being attacked from all sides. And the funny thing is that he still holds a very loyal base. So the major global decisions that are shaping everything is what really matters a lot. But again, is America heading towards unity or deeper decisions? What do you think, guys? Thank you so much. If you watched the clip up to this point, I truly appreciate your presence. See you same time every day. I'll see you in the next video.